All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the June 2026 edition of our What's New with Lean Data webinar. And if this is your first time attending, this is where we get to showcase everything that our product and development teams have been working on and to highlight for you the features in our latest release that are going to have the greatest impact for your organization. Now, before we jump into it, I do have a few housekeeping items to cover first. Firstly, we do invite questions. So if you have a question, please utilize the Q&A box that you see in your interface to ask that question, and we'll do our best to address them naturally as they come up. But in case we don't get to your questions, we'll make sure that we follow up and get you the answers that you need. And secondly, folks will always ask if there's going to be a recording of this. There will be. So we will be recording the session so that we can make that available to you following our time today. And lastly, just a quick disclaimer, we may be mentioning a few things that are still on our roadmap. And as with all things that are still in the development phase, they are subject to change. So any future roadmap items that we mention represent our current plans, but they aren't a guarantee of delivery by any specific time frame. So today, we get the pleasure of hearing from our different product managers, Isabel and Daniel, on different specific features of our latest 8.x release. But first, I do want to invite Amar, our Chief Product Officer, who just joined LeanData last year. So Amar, can I invite you onto the stage and you can introduce yourself and maybe pull back the camera a little bit for us to give us more color on the direction and the trajectory of LeanData products, where we've come and where we're going.
No, fantastic. Thank you for having me, Kevin. Excited to be, on my first, product webinar here for the company, and excited to talk to everybody who's on. I came from 6 Sense. Prior to this, I spent more than a decade in GTM tech. Really excited to take on this opportunity and really dig in with customers into all the great things that we can do and build here as a part of the platform and the horizontal orchestration layer. Obviously been a fan for many years of LeanData even prior to joining. And, just to build it out, over the last, it's been 6 months, time flies. But in 6 months, I've been able to have, 2 customer advisory boards, had, 50, maybe 70 customer interviews where I've been talking to many of you, went through a lot of the G2 crowd reviews and understanding what people's perspectives are. Talking to a lot of our CSMs who are representing, all the feedback coming from you. And we've culled through hundreds of feature requests that were pending just to understand what are the big themes and big things that we can go and do on the product. And as we look through, we put it all together, that's kind of what brought about our 2026 roadmap plans. And we're, halfway through that. In fact, this week, most of our customers are now experiencing all the benefits of this May release. And so the 3 big themes that aligned for us were, one is, hey, LeanData invest in more AI capabilities, but it came with this subtext of invest in AI capabilities that really help make things simple, make things more efficient, but don't lose the ability to still maintain that trust, still maintain that observability. And so that's kind of where we've been focusing our roadmap. Of course, the whole make our admins' lives easier. All of you are our primary kind of users for the product. And what we found is every little thing that we can do that saves you time, whether it's answering questions, making configurations, making graph updates, thinking about how round robin pools are managed. These were the places where admins were giving us a lot of feedback. And so that's a key theme for us. And then the third thing that we heard was, hey, we know we can operate and use LeanData, within this great UI, but can you give us more APIs? Can you, give us a MCP server that can do more things? And this is for scheduling and for orchestration for all our products. And so we kind of took that to heart. And as you'll see reflected in a lot of the work that we've done and where we're going, these are the key themes that we're keeping in mind. And so what are we building for here at LeanData? It's really, we want to be the orchestration layer for what we believe is kind of the agentic era, right? Where everybody is investing in this. And there is a lot of foundational things that have to happen in order to power your agentic and AI experiences that you, as our customers, as companies who are going through an AI transformation, needs from a vendor like us. And so what did we do in the beginning? Well, Q3 of last year, this is right prior to me joining the company. we kind of launched our AI graph summary and graph comparison feature that was really designed to explain the artifact of these flow builder graphs that, many of you have been with us for 5+ years and you have built some really amazing graphs. The logic starts simple, but over time, there's so many amazing things that you want to do for your business, and the graphs kind of move with it. We support all these use cases, but over time, it gets a little difficult to explain what's happened on a graph, especially for somebody new who's joining the company. And so that feature was very critical, very important. We released that. I know many of you are using it. But soon after, in Q1, we started working on this AI inference node. And the idea was, can we bring some element of reasoning into the actual graph logic and help you do more interesting things by having this inference node in addition to all the decision nodes? A lot of requests for, well, can we get APIs and things out of a scheduling product and connect it to our AI SDRs, whether it's a qualified experience or a one-mind experience or something else. We have customers who've built in-house AI SDRs. And so we kind of invested in these APIs to power those agentic experiences. Where we are today, you'll hear a lot from the team, is just kind of doubling down on that. We really leaned into how do we create an AI assistant that can really help answer all these questions that come on a daily basis. Reps asking questions about why something, routed a certain way, or a manager asking for why is something not working, or you see errors and you're trying to get an explanation for why something happened. So that was kind of, step number one, is let's go solve this. And to do that, we also had to unify the audit logs. And in turn, we solved, I think, hundreds of feature requests that were around, can we see these things unified? Can we see audit logs, which combines things across different objects, which combines things across different products, scheduling and BookIt? And so we kind of delivered on that value with this release. And I'm excited for you to see and hear what the team is going to present. And also we delivered this BookIt MCP. It's currently in beta, but we're encouraging a lot of customers to try it and tell us what you think. But how can we connect to your agentic experiences by offering an MCP server and offering you the ability to get more out of the system, answer questions around operations and reports and data that can help you drive your business in a better way. And where are we going, right? So if you see the theme, the connected theme here, we want to keep adding more skills to our AI assistant. And so where we want to go next is, how can we have the AI assistant actually do more with the flow builder graph, be able to understand what's going on in the graph, explain different parts of the graph, even beyond what the AI summary can do, help you configure a node, optimize it, help you understand, diagnostics of the graph, and take advantage of, all the different things that you can use in a conversational experience. So that's kind of where we're going to go. Big part of the second half of this year's roadmap. And you'll see the theme of unification. For scheduling, we want to unify all the meeting logs, because once we can do that, we can offer far more sophisticated capabilities and layer on AI and do a lot more for you from a reporting standpoint, from an orchestration standpoint. And round robin pools, many customers have complained about, well, why are these all kind of separate? Why am I managing so many duplicated pools? Can this be easier to manage, easier to maintain? And so we're kind of doubling down on this theme of simplicity. How do we make it really easy and simple, whether it's through agentic experiences, whether it's through an MCP server, whether it's through redesigning our UI. We went through a major upgrade of our meeting type creation UI UX in our last release. So we're doing all these investments to just make it extremely simple for admins to get the task and the job done. And, I brought this slide up just to say that, these are not just features we're putting out there that are meant to check the box. Like, real customers are already using these features. Uber is using this to power their self-serve experience, where they have the ability for users to come on board for Uber for Business, try to self-serve. If they hit a point in the configuration that it's too complex, they use a BookIt experience to automatically get on a call with a rep to solve the problem and get them onboarded, right? That's real business, real dollars, real time savings to get to the promised land of a converted customer. Or Telium, right, who is connecting their AI chat solution with our LeanData BookIt logic, using these APIs, using our experiences, and then automatically routing visitors when they're known visitors to the exact rep that the person should be speaking with. And Trailient, I love this use case because what they've done is they've taken the advantage of not just our scheduling product, but also the AI inference node, which sits within our orchestration product. And they're looking at all these leads that are coming in, and where the leads don't have the right company name, they're using the AI inference node to do more research or extract the company name from the domain name of the email address. And if that particular domain name or the email address is a Gmail or a Yahoo Mail or something else, they're actually like creating a task for their auto BDR to go out and do an email to validate which is the company and who's the person, basically get more data. And so if you look at the benefit of that, this is all about automation and increasing the quality of the meetings that are getting booked. And so when you see these kinds of use cases that are built on all these features we've talked about, to me, this feels like we're hitting on the right kind of use cases that are going to help you extract more value. So if any of these things are interesting, highly encourage you to talk to your customer success manager and learn more about all these great use cases that customers are doing on these capabilities. So without further ado, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but the 8X release is power-packed with a ton of amazing features. And these are the themes with which we thought about it, right? It's how do we make things simple, but at the same time, how do we give our customers a winning edge by using AI? How do we make scheduling really effortless, and we're constantly removing, any kinds of steps that are taking place from the point of configuration to the point of meeting booking? We're adding more and more intelligence by adding hierarchies and giving you, best fit assignment features and other things that we feel are going to make it far more possible for you to do really interesting things on your graphs. And then finally, going back to just saving time, we want to provide you the ability to have a lot more governance, especially as you're entering into, more AI-driven and agentic experiences. This is going to be very critical and crucial for any platform like a LeanData to give to you and to, our customers, to our admins, so that you have the control and the visibility that you need. But at the same time, it is about helping you save time and get to the promised land faster. So without further ado, I'm excited to pass it on to the team and have them tell you more about these amazing capabilities we have.
Yeah, no, firstly, thank you for walking us through that. It really shows how much thought goes into the features that we work on and put our time and attention into. And also the fact that it comes from actual customer feedback. That's huge. That's important. It's not just decisions that folks are making in a room together, but we're actively listening to our customers before we do these things. One thing that did come up as you were walking through some of the different features that we will be highlighting here, didn't hear too much around buying groups. So is there any effort and development around that, and sort of what can we expect regarding buying groups?
Oh, that's a great question. So yeah, we've actually been investing pretty heavily into our Buying Groups Edition product. So what's been happening is two things in parallel. So we have been updating our current product and adding more features to it and enhancing some of the UI usability. But in parallel, we're also working in a very iterative fashion with a bunch of customers who are part of our CAB to basically try to iterate and understand some of the other pain points that they have, create features, give it to them in this kind of pilot environment. They test it, give us feedback, and we iterate. And so the results of all of these capabilities, we're expecting that to be hitting GA in the second half of the year. Features like we have an AI assistant that we've designed, which is meant to answer interesting questions about journeys. We've created capabilities that help you have a journey list and help you prioritize that list so teams know what to prioritize and how to work the list. We're working on different capabilities to add more actions and more alerting. And so we're just taking all this feedback and constantly just iterating on this pilot, eventually with the goal to make that a part of our GA product. So I'm really excited to tell you guys more about that, as we get closer.
All right. Looking forward to hearing about that. Thanks, Amar.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, I know that many folks are excited about this release, the here and now, what's available to you at this moment. So let's first dive into this theme of gaining an AI-powered winning edge. And the first feature that supports that is our LeanData AI Assistant. So I'll invite Isabel, our senior product manager overseeing orchestration, and invite you to the stage to tell us about this AI assistant.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin. Hey, everyone. I'm excited to talk about our new LeanData AI Assistant. So this is a new jump forward in some of our AI capabilities, where we are going to be bringing a new AI assistant into our audit logs. So with this assistant in this release, you will be able to kind of talk with this assistant within audit logs to ask more about the details of specific logs and how routing assignments were made. So before, you'd have to kind of go in if, for example, a rep would ask you a question like, hey, why did I actually get this lead? Why did this route to me? You as an admin would likely have to go into LeanData, open up audit logs for that specific object, that lead object, for example, and then trace back to find the specific log that that rep was asking about. After doing so, what you do is you'd probably read through that path, try to understand exactly what happened, what are the characteristics of the lead that made it route a certain way, and finally end up at that rep. From there, what you do is you'd probably try to translate that into something that the rep can understand, and then send that information back to the rep. Overall, pretty long process, but we know it's kind of a question that a lot of you admins do get day to day from your reps. So the purpose of this assistant is really to help make that process easier. So rather than going through that manual process, what you might do is actually just ask directly in the assistant, hey, why did this lead named X person route to X user? What it's going to do is now it's going to actually pull up that log for you on its own. No need to actually search that yourself, and then return that answer in natural language. That way you can kind of read over it. It's already prepped for you to just send that back to your rep. Overall, really wanting to make that process a lot easier for you all. But besides that, there are also other questions you might be able to ask, like, hey, why did this record error, for example? And that can help you kind of resolve any of the errors that might be coming out in your routing flows. We do have some additional just like AI assistant features that'll help here. We do have additional conversation-based threads so that you can actually have different conversations based off of and pick up on certain conversations based off of like what you've asked it before. And that'll really help you organize your work efficiently there as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it's definitely now a model that folks are used to interacting with the chat assistant in various capacities. So I think this will be a very easy thing to pick up for folks. But, as for the time savings aspect, do you have any metrics around how much you would expect a typical admin to save on a weekly basis by using something like this versus the old method that you described?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just kind of went through that process itself on like how an admin, how you all might be doing this today.
Yeah.
So I think like per time, like a rep asks, like I think that'd save you 10 minutes or so, depending on, how quickly it actually takes you to look at that path. So just think about that, how that expands into weekly. I think there is just a large number of time savings that can be done answering those questions so that you can actually better focus on, your actual day job, which is not answering those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Also another question about, so this will give you information about how something was routed, right? But does it have the ability to then go a step further and then make recommendations for, let's say, if it is a graph error or something that was set up in a certain way, to how would you want to set it up so that you get the result that you want?
Yeah, so that's actually going to be answered with our next iteration of the AI assistant, which is going to be bringing it into the flow builder itself. You'd be able to ask it questions like, hey, I see this error. How do I fix my graph so that that error doesn't happen again? So that's going to be coming up next quarter. So kind of giving you a little preview about that. So yeah, this first iteration is going to be mostly on logs, and then you're going to see this come up in other parts of our product in the future as well.
All right. Well, lots to play with now, but stuff to look forward to as well. All right. Thanks, Isabel. That was a very exciting feature. I think folks are really going to enjoy it. But now we're going to switch gears a little bit, but we still want to remain on this theme of AI and how you can gain an edge with AI tools alongside LeanData. But we're actually going to jump over to the scheduling side of the house, and we'll have a chance to talk about how AI interfaces with LeanData scheduling products. And for that, I'd like to invite Daniel, our scheduling product manager, onto the stage here to tell us a little bit more about BookIt MCP, which are two words I'm familiar with, but not together. So Daniel, can you tell us about BookIt MCP?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. Thanks for having me, Kevin. So the BookIt MCP is one of the features we're most excited about in A.X. And what the BookIt MCP allows you to do is connect any AI client like Claude or ChatGPT or maybe your own AI agent. Allows you to connect those to BookIt and either read information from BookIt or write information to BookIt. It essentially just gives you like a window into BookIt functionality. So I think we can kind of go through a use case here that'll really cement this for the people listening. And so on the right, you see a Claude window open there, and there's the question around availability for a particular pool and a particular meeting type. So an admin might be asking at the start of the week, like, what does availability look like for a particular meeting type for this pool? And what is going to happen is Claude is going to be able to use the BookIt MCP to pull availability for those reps. And then Claude is going to present that information however it will. In this case, it happened to present it in a report. So previously, to do something like this, you would have to write custom code, or you would have to do a Salesforce report. But instead, you can just use something like Claude and the BookIt MCP to pull this information. But that's really just like one small thing you could do with the BookIt MCP. We're pretty much exposing all of BookIt to be accessible through like AI agents or any of your AI clients. And so that's extremely powerful because an admin could begin administering BookIt through their AI clients, and reps could even begin using the MCP for some of their functionality. For example, a rep might want to pull all of their booking links and be able to just grab one and drop it in an email. Or maybe they want to be able to cancel a meeting, right? So they could say, tell me all my upcoming meetings. Okay, this one I already know should be canceled because I received an email that told me this prospect can't make it anymore. So they could just type right into Claude, cancel my meeting with prospect X. And then the BookIt MCP takes care of that. So it's a really amazing interface into BookIt functionality that we're bringing to you all.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And again, continuing on that theme of using a different interaction method that folks may be a lot more comfortable with. And Daniel, I know that we won't have time to talk about, the different configuration and setup for this, but something that does come up quite a bit when it comes to AI tools is just the level of access and visibility. So, when we're dealing with an admin working with the BookIt MCP versus a rep who is opening up their Claude and then chatting with it, is there a difference as far as the level of access and permission? What are some of the guardrails that we have around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the BookIt MCP, there are actually two methods of authentication. So one method is like a one-time code login where you would just specify an email address and then the permission set that should be associated with that email address, either admin or user today. Admin would have like full permission. User has just permission scoped down to, like that kind of like user level, which is just what we call like dashboard access. So you're able to determine with a one-time code login, admin versus user. And then whoever uses that one-time code and authenticates will just inherit the permission that, was assigned to that email address. So that's like the one-time code flow. That may be most useful if you're hooking up like an AI agent to the BookIt MCP and there really isn't like a Salesforce login. But most cases will actually use a Salesforce OAuth login where the permission doesn't have to be set ahead of time. We'll just be able to detect that user's permission set once they've gone through that Salesforce login. So for example, an admin, a BookIt admin, they would go into Claude, they would set up the connector, and then we would prompt them to log in through Salesforce, a little window. And then once they've logged in, we know who they are, right? And we know their permission set. So everything is properly set. Same with like a rep who sets up Claude connector to the BookIt MCP. When they go through the Salesforce OAuth login, we'll know who they are, we'll know their permission set. So they won't be able to do things that an admin can do, right? So that they could do in the data application will be consistent with what they could do through the MCP. Same with an admin. So we're being very careful, making sure that permissions are still properly scoped.
Okay, got it. So it's just following the Salesforce permission set in the cases that we're using that OAuth login, but otherwise you get to preset the level before you send the one-time code if you're choosing to use that method of authentication.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's go ahead and continue on this theme of enhancements to scheduling. Now, scheduling is something that is invariably going to be a part of your go-to-market processes, but it's not necessarily something that you should think or want to be an obstacle or a roadblock to your selling. You should be selling based off of the value of your product and the fit that it has with a particular customer. But scheduling friction should not be part of that equation, but unfortunately it is for many folks. So our aim and our goal is to remove that friction and to make scheduling as effortless as possible. So Daniel, could you tell us about some of the ways that we can actually facilitate this effortless scheduling and make a better experience? So if you could tell us maybe about our first feature of our meeting type editor enhancements.
Yeah, 100%. So meeting type editor enhancements is a complete rebuild of the meeting type editor. So the meeting type editor really is one of the most important pieces of BookIt because it's where all configuration for a meeting is done, or at least most of it. So we're talking about like duration of the meeting, if there are buffer times, how does the confirmation email look like, reminders, etc. There's so much that's contained within the meeting type editor. And so we wanted to revisit this piece of BookIt functionality to make it as easy as possible to set up and also to give you really good defaults that help you just set it up correctly. So those were kind of the first pieces, but then we took it even further and we thought to ourselves, well, how many times have you set up a piece of software and then wondered, did I actually do that correctly? Maybe that's something that some people on this call can resonate with. And so we realized offering some sort of preview per thing that you set up, when it has like a visual component, can be extremely valuable. So that's what we went ahead and added in. So for example, if you change the styling, how does that look? You have a preview now. You can go see that. If you change the description or the meeting type name or the logo, right, how does that actually look? Or confirmation email, right? Or the calendar event, right? How does that all look? So now you can verify while you're in the meeting type editor, instead of having to save and then go create a link and then use that meeting type and then load the page and then see if you did it correctly. You'll just be able to do it right here. So that was really nice. And then we've also, while we were at it, added in, kind of got in a couple more feature requests. One thing that some of you guys will really like is you're now able to set the calendar event organizer setting at the meeting type level instead of at the global level. And that's specifically for BookIt handoff. And what that feature does, just real quick, is it allows the organizer of the calendar event to be the person who's scheduling the meeting, the person who's handing off the meeting, instead of the person who's receiving the handoff. And so this is really useful for companies where their SDRs who are using handoff need to own the calendar event in case of, if they need to move it around or change something, instead of the rep who's going to be the one scheduled with, instead of them owning it. So when the SDR still owns that calendar event, you can now control that per meeting type. So it's not global. And then also another kind of small thing, but is nice. The confirmation email, you can now customize it for hosts. Before, it was just like static. Now, if you want to put some additional information in for the host to see, you can do that. And so that might be useful if there's some just, information you want the host to see that you don't want guests to see.
Yeah, that's great. I think for a lot of times when we roll out these new features, they're great for our users moving forward and from this point on. For those of folks who spend a lot of time setting up their meeting types and kind of getting them perfect and invested all that time into it, this doesn't change that or undo, or they wouldn't have to go back and to update anything on their end. This is simply taking what they existing have and providing a new UI and a few new features around that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So they're going to see one-to-one between what they had before, what they have now. You will just notice it's like a full screen experience. So things are a lot less crammed. You will notice that there are different tabs. We've simplified the tabs and we've regrouped the features just to make them more aligned with like where they should live, just making it more intuitive. You will notice that there's some additional like helper copy for each of the settings and some more like icons that explain how things work. But as far as your actual settings, you don't need to worry about it. They're all one-to-one.
Excellent. Love to hear about these quality of life improvements that'll just make using LeanData BookIt that much better to use. Right. So let's move on to our next topic. So LeanData has facilitated your meetings, but what if then the details for that meeting change, and specifically if the original rep can't make it or they get deactivated or something along those lines? So, how do we handle that? What new features do we have in place to facilitate that specific scenario, Daniel?
Yeah. So meeting reassignment is really meant to address that. It's like meeting lifecycle management. It's really like operational resilience to handle unexpected situations. So for example, let's say like a rep is out sick, right? And you need to reassign that meeting to a different rep so that they are now on the calendar invite, and they have all the information they need in order to then like go hop on that call. Also, you want to be able to cancel a meeting from that old rep, who was out sick. But there's a lot of other stuff that needs updating. You need to update Salesforce events. You need to update remarks, all sorts of stuff. And before this feature, that all had to be done manually, right? And it wasn't a good experience for admins because there was so much work that they had to do. It wasn't a great experience for prospects because they likely would receive like a cancellation and then a new booking, where they would have to, get a new link and then enter information again and book it. And so it was, there was just a lot of friction. And so with meeting reassignment, we actually handle all of that now.
Mm-hmm.
So what this looks like is you go to the meeting log as an admin, you click reschedule meeting, and you'll have the option to change both the hosts who are on the meeting,
Right.
and the date and time if you want. Or you can keep the date and time the same as long as that works for the new hosts. And then when you click schedule, we're going to swap out the hosts. We're going to take care of giving the new host account, giving a credit back to the old host. We're going to update the Salesforce event. We're going to have a view meeting history table that's going to show you the entire history of the table, so you know who reassigned it, when the new meeting was, all the information you need to audit. And it's going to make just the whole kind of flow a lot more seamless for everyone involved. So yeah, really excited to bring this one out to our customers in ADEX because we know that this use case comes up a lot. It's really going to save admins time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the benefit and the improvement for our admins and their use of this is clear. And then you had mentioned that we take care of the fairness aspect of it in terms of crediting the right recipients for the meetings and handling all of that. But for the end users, the folks external to your organization who are having these meetings scheduled with them, what do they see? Because there's all of this reassignment and things that we're cleaning up on the back end. How much of that is visible to them? Would it be confusing to them, different messages that come their way, or is that all kind of handled within that as well?
Yeah, it'll all be handled. There are times when we do want to send information to the prospect. For example, let's say the date and time changes. Well, we want them to know. So in that case, they're just going to get a meeting that says like, hey, your meeting's been rescheduled. Right. So they're not going to get something that says, hey, it's canceled with this old rep, it's newly scheduled with this new rep. It's just going to say it's rescheduled. But if there aren't changes to the date and time, let's say we're just swapping hosts, everything on our end, BookIt then to like minimize the amount of communication that gets. So it's just like, we're not going to send them a new confirmation email, for example. Now the new hosts, they are going to get a confirmation email. Right. Because they need to know. And then the old host, they're going to get a specific like reassignment email letting them know, hey, this meeting's been reassigned away from you. But as far as our prospect, it should be very seamless because we don't want to introduce any potential confusion.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the concern. It's not you're going to get a cancel email, then a new meeting email, and you have to accept that. So all of that's sort of handled with the minimal communication, as far as they get the things that they need and not a bunch of excess on top of that. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. One other thing just to mention here, while we were at it, on the meeting log, that's where you'll be able to reschedule meetings as an admin. We also threw in the cancellation the cancellation link there.
Okay.
And so you'll be able to cancel a meeting from the meeting log. And because we know who's logged in, we'll be able to attribute that cancellation to you So all that goes into that meeting history table that I was talking about. So they're just much better auditing. And then also, as far as the fairness piece with the count that we give the new rep and then the credit that we give the old rep,
That's right.
you'll be able to see in the credit history that this was due to a reassignment. You'll be able to see who reassigned it. So just like, at LeanData, we really care about your auditability, and like building that trust with our admins. So we've thought through that with this project as well. And everything will be very clear as to what happened.
Yeah. That transparency is a huge piece of things. Even getting the credits right and having visibility into why the credits are the way that they are, go hand in hand. So I appreciate you mentioning that, Daniel. Okay. So let's move on to our next topic of calendar buffer events. So what is this? Why is this a necessary improvement for our admins?
Yeah. So the last feature, meeting reassignment, right? It's all admin driven. It's something that, helps them out kind of mostly. But the calendar buffer events, this is really around helping our hosts out.
Okay.
So we have always had buffers in BookIt, but they were really only respected at the time of scheduling. So what that means is when a scheduling page loaded, if a meeting type had buffers on it, we would respect those buffers in the time slots that a prospect would see on that scheduling page. So we would only show time slots that took into account those buffers.
Mm-hmm.
Once a time was selected and a meeting was booked, the actual calendar event didn't have buffers on it or next to it. And so what that meant is that time that you expected to be blocked off, say like 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after, it didn't persist post booking.
Right.
So somebody might see that, look at your calendar, for example, like your manager sees you've got actually 15 minutes after that, demo call you're doing, and they might put something there. And so that time that you were expecting to have to like follow up with that prospect or maybe take some notes, update, the record in Salesforce actually gets booked over. So that was only really respected during scheduling, but it didn't persist afterwards. And so what this feature does is it truly creates those buffer events on your calendar, on the rep's calendar, if they would like them. It's optional. It's just a checkbox. So if you want them, you can have them. If you want it to work like the old way, where it's only respected at the time of scheduling, you can also do that. And then on top of that, we added a couple more options for buffer events because we heard that 15 minutes was a little bit too long. That was our minimum. So we threw in 5 minutes and 10 minutes. And then also really importantly, these buffer events, they are managed throughout reschedules and cancellation and reassignments. So if a meeting's rescheduled, those buffer events are going to move. If the meeting's canceled, we're going to remove those. And then if the meeting's reassigned to a different rep, we're going to remove them from the old rep and we'll give them to the new rep at the time of the meeting.
Excellent. So just to clarify, is this a global setting or is this at the meeting type level for these buffer events?
Yeah, great question. So it's at the meeting type level.
Right.
So that gives, way more flexibility than putting it at the global level. And so, if people have personal meeting types, they're able to set those as they will. And then, it's just, much, much more flexible and it's at the meeting type.
Okay. Yeah. So people have the option to have certain meetings, have that buffer calendar event and others to not have that. So that's going to be helpful for a lot of folks. Thanks, Daniel. All right. So multi-meeting type landing page. This looks familiar. If I'm not mistaken, this is something that we've had for a few versions now. So what's new about this and how does that support this idea of effortless scheduling for folks?
Yeah. All right. So multi-meeting type landing page. So what we had before was multi-meeting type landing pages for links.
Right.
And so what we're doing here, or what we've done, is we've brought that functionality to BookIt for Forms and routing links. And so the implementation is very different because with BookIt for Forms and with routing links, you have a graph. You have your BookIt for Forms graph. And it's really the schedule node in that graph where the meeting type is defined. And so what we've done is we've given you the ability to select multiple meeting types. And so why does that matter? Well, previously, when you can only select one meeting type in the schedule node, that means if you wanted to offer a different meeting type to prospects, there had to be some sort of logic upstream that directed you to a different schedule node, because only one schedule node can have one meeting type. And so that means you had to have some branch, right? So that means you have to have some decision logic above. And likely you are making that decision based off of something from the form. So that means another form field.
Yeah.
And so you have kind of all of these things, right? In order to offer a different meeting type, you had to do different things, right? Ask a prospect for more information. You had to change your graph. You had to add more nodes. There's just more to make. But what we've done here is because now you can specify meeting types at the schedule node. And when you specify more than one, what we do is we show a landing page to the prospect. So the prospect can now choose the meeting type that's most appropriate for whatever meeting they want to have. Let's say you want to offer a demo for scheduling or a demo for orchestration. Well, it'd be great for the host to know, your rep, it'd be great for them to know which one the prospect has selected so that they can prepare accordingly. And so now that choice is made by the prospect. So that saves you from having to set up multiple schedule nodes. It saves you from branching logic. It saves you from changes on your form because you've offloaded that to the prospect. And then it gives the prospect agency actually, right? So it's, do they want a 30-minute meeting, 60-minute meeting, right? Different use cases, different objectives. So all those requests, we know that this has been working super well for links. And so when we released that, people were asking, hey, can we do this for BookIt for Forms? Can we do this for routing links? So we can have parity there. And so, yeah, we've brought that in. So now we have alignment between all of the products.
Yeah, that's excellent. I hadn't thought actually of the benefit of not needing to have as many questions on your form fields to be able to direct someone to the right place, because if they're self-selecting, those questions are inherently answered by the meeting that they select, and it's done on their end without adding additional questions for them.
Exactly. And one of the other kind of things that is maybe not as clear here is, remember we talked about meeting types. Like a meeting type has all the configuration for meeting. And so if they click LeanData scheduling demo, because they've selected that meeting type, we're able to show a totally different description. We're able to show a different title. We're able to ask different questions after, in our scheduling information page, different confirmation email, etc. Right? So it's a way more customized experience that you can offer your prospects because they're the ones choosing the meeting type.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for sharing that. That's a very exciting feature, and I hope folks really get all the benefits that we described here from that. All right. Well, Daniel, thank you for sharing all of these exciting new scheduling features and enhancements. We've really covered how LeanData is really pushing AI into everything that we do so that you can gain that winning edge. And we've also talked about this idea of effortless scheduling as a part of your GTM process. It shouldn't be the roadblock when it comes to selling. So let's switch gears and transition a little bit into this concept of executing not just efficiently, but intelligently. And one of our newest features around that is best fit assignment. So I'm going to ask Isabel to come back onto the stage and tell us about this newest best fit assignment feature.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. So best fit assignment is actually going to be a new functionality that we support with our round robin node. So what you're going to see is there's this new mode called attribute aware mode. And what it is going to do is it's going to help route records to the best fit rep based off of those rep attributes, as well as some of context of the record being routed to the rep. So as you all may be familiar with, on the orchestration side, round robin pools were assigned. They assign records, but they do it in a strict next in line order. So, a lead A comes in, it's going to go to rep A. Lead B comes in, it's going to go to rep B, et cetera, et cetera. So it's in that order, but what it doesn't do is take into account some of the characteristics of the leads, like maybe the language that the lead speaks, where's the lead from, And it also doesn't take into account any of the characteristics of, that rep. Like you might have a rep who's like a little bit more skilled in a certain product. Maybe they speak a certain language, and you can't really optimize for those scenarios to give a better experience to your lead. So with best fit assignment, it's a new mode here where we're actually able to take into account that record context. So like the example I mentioned, like you'd be able to see like, hey, the lead, speaks a certain language, they're interested in a certain product. And you assign it to the best fit rep, quote unquote rep, based off of attributes of the rep themselves, like what language they speak, what product expertise they have, if they are actually good at a specific industry, have a good historical success with a specific industry, for example, or their tenure. These are all examples of attributes you can take, not meant to be like something you must do, but it's going to help take that into account when we actually do the assignments. Now, kind of a question there is we're also making sure we are balancing fairness to that. So we're not, that can easily make it so that, all the leads go to one specific rep. That's not what we're trying to do here. This actually only comes into play in those specific tiebreaker scenarios. Like maybe you have rep A and rep B, they both have the same number of counts. So given that, like let's assign this new incoming lead to the better fit rep in that scenario. That way you're not going to have those questions from your reps about like unequal assignment, for example. So part of that, you would be able to set those required attributes or priority attributes, which is like attributes you might want to prioritize. And we are also just bonus here, bringing in count-based distribution to our round robin pools on orchestration as well.
Got it. So more about the attributes specifically. So you mentioned a few here like language and product expertise, tenure. Are those things sort of preset, or can you have your own custom criteria internally that you can assign? And is that configured in LeanData, or is it configured at like the Salesforce level?
Yeah, so there's 2 steps to this. The first step is actually kind of pulling in that attribute data for your users. Now we're going to allow you to pull that in directly from Salesforce from the user object. That way, if there's any updates that are done in the CRM, we automatically take in those updates. Now, so yeah, that could be anywhere there. But actually setting which attributes you want to prioritize, that will be done in LeanData. That's going to be done in the round robin out itself.
Okay, got it. So kind of jumping a little over to what you talked about before with audit logs. So this is sort of another layer of how to route your records that's sort of contained within a node itself. Is that captured on the audit logs? Can people see why LeanData chose this rep as the best fit versus this other rep?
Yep, absolutely. So our audit logs are also updated now. So you kind of see those very similar to the audit logs you might see in a get records in a match node. You see how that logic cascades down and ultimately selects a rep. So it's all going to be there for you in audit logs as well.
Okay, so full visibility as we like. Okay. All right, our next feature here, we have a multi-hierarchy support. So, I kind of understand what the words mean here, but why would someone need support for multiple hierarchies? Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so this is going to be another update to our account hierarchies functionality that we've been really adding to over the last few quarters. And why a customer or why you might want to use multiple hierarchies is that you can actually now build and maintain different hierarchies for different use cases. So, we've heard some of you mention that you have different hierarchies for different use cases. Like you might have a specific legal hierarchies that's really done for kind of billing purposes, but then you might have a sales hierarchy that's more meant to like identify any open opportunities, missing accounts that you want to reach out to. With this functionality, you can now build both. You can independently maintain them, and you can also bring them back into routing so that you can choose which specific hierarchy you might want to actually use. I think another use case I did want to bring up here is like, I know a lot of you also have different enrichment providers that you use. So you'd be able to build a separate Zoom info, for example, hierarchy and a D&B hierarchy, and then use that to try to identify where the gaps are between each one.
See. Now, juggling multiple hierarchies, is this something that you can use multiple hierarchies within the same graph, or is it, only for visualization, or can you access both of them within the same pass through your routing graph?
Yeah, so I think what's cool about this is you will be able to reference multiple within your routing graph. So once you build them, you select in that account hierarchy match node which hierarchy you're actually trying to look into. And then it will just traverse that specific hierarchy itself. I did mention that use case a little bit earlier about like maybe you have 2 enrichment providers. So one way you might want to use that to your advantage is when like an account maybe goes through your graph, you actually check for its existence in both of those hierarchies, for example. And if you see that one is missing, you can actually update that account itself so that it actually fits into the hierarchy of the other one. So that's how you can kind of get that global hierarchy with multiple enrichment providers.
Okay, got it. Anything else to mention on this one before we move on to our next theme here?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't touch upon that too much, but it's also going to resolve in your visualization as well. I mean, if you see that screen, you can now select which hierarchy you actually want to look at. So yeah, it's just access to more information in general.
Okay, so they'll all just be contained in the visualization. You can collapse or expand whichever one you want to look at. Okay, awesome. All right, well, Amar mentioned earlier that we want to ensure that as you expand the capabilities in your tech stack, that you also have visibility and accountability. That's necessary. It's also expected. And we've made a few new enhancements that will support all of you admins in this regard. So our first improvement here is to audit logs. So Isabel, can you tell us what is new about LeanData's audit logs, maybe other than the assistant that you already talked to us about?
Yeah, we know audit logs is kind of one of the favorite features of our product, really with the visibility that it brings. So we did a big update and a refresh on our audit logs experience. So with this new experience, you'll be able to search across different objects and products in one search experience. So before, you'd have to click into lead audit logs or contact audit logs, or even like your scheduling audit logs, and you'd have to do that all separately. With this, we're kind of bringing that all into one unified view. That way you no longer have to kind of make that extra decision where it's like, well, I'm looking for a log and it was this specific record. You can just go there instantly there. You'll also see that kind of new look and feel here. I'm trying to just kind of update that, make it a lot more easy to parse through. And like I mentioned before, the new AI assistant is actually going to sit on top of this new experience as well.
Nice, nice. So I can definitely see the time savings as far as, okay, I don't have to go to this page and then go to this other page to look at this other object. So having everything all in one is already a win. And then the Autolog assistant or the LeanData assistant on top of that's going to be helpful. Is there anything else that's like net new functionality? Because this is a UI change and that's helpful in many ways, but is there anything that I can do now that I wasn't able to do before with these Autologs?
Yeah, I mean, one thing you can do here is we did add a new filter functionality so that you can actually dynamically filter the records you see on your screen. So a little different from the advanced search that we had before, where you kind of choose the specific kind of logs you want to see. Now you can actually zoom in that even closer. You'll see that left sidebar, there's that new filter button where you can kind of drill in even more from there. And then this is more on a benefit side, but like with all of the logs in one screen, you can now actually chronologically trace how a record might have traversed different routing graphs. You have a classic lead conversion to contact conversion use case. Now you can actually see like, okay, how did it go through that lead graph, and then how it went through that contact graph in that one unified experience.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. That's super helpful. All right, so that's audit logs, already a beloved feature, but getting even better. Also another beloved feature, being able to track SLAs using what we used to call the hold until node, but we have some enhancements around that. So Isabel, could you tell us about that?
Yeah, and Kevin kind of gave you that little preview. So we are updating our hold until node to be called the track SLA node to better match, that use case you obviously want to use for SLA tracking. And we also added a series of big updates to the node itself so that it does have more SLA tracking and governance capabilities. So in one use case we hear often is like, today, if you actually wanted to track multiple SLA actions, like there's actually multiple steps and things that a rep needs to do, you would have to chain multiple hold until node in order to do it, just because it exits after like one rule is met. The other thing that we also often hear from customers is like sending SLA reminder alerts also needs to be chained because, let's say there's like 30 minutes left before SLA expires. You actually need to configure that send notification node, essentially exit that first hold until node, configure that send notification node, and then go back into another hold
Yeah.
until node. So yeah, we made some updates. We're trying to make that a lot easier. So within the track SLA node, it can now handle multiple SLA rules so that you don't actually exit that node until all the rules are met. And then we allow for tracking the specific amount of time it took for each of those rules to complete, as well as in total, how long did it take for SLA to be met as a whole. Within that node itself, now we built in those reminder notifications, so you no longer need to exit those nodes. It supports email, Slack, and Teams so that you can just automatically send out those notifications without exiting the node itself. Overall, this should make time to action tracking a lot simpler because you are still tracking that under one time to action tracker object. The last thing we did here is we do have this new optional feature here where you can actually extend how long that record is being held in that node, even after SLA is met. So, you might actually want to see how long your rep ultimately did take the action, and you have some leeway in terms of like, hey, like they didn't do it in the 4 hours, but if they do it in the next hour, we'll keep it to that rep. We now allow you to do that just within that SLA node itself.
Yeah, that's great. Personally, that's one that I've been waiting for a while, and as far as extending that tracking. Obviously this is a lot of additional functionality, stuff that you couldn't do before, or you kind of had to do some workarounds to kind of get at that, approximate that. For folks who've been already using our old hold until node and building time to action tracker reports, does this, because we're tracking different things here, so does it change how they would need to structure the reports? Do they have to change their existing reports? How does that kind of affect the reporting aspect of things?
Yeah, so we built it to kind of make the changes pretty minimal in terms of your time to action reporting. If anything, this actually gives more detail that you can add in your reports for time to action tracking. You can track those individual rules, for example. But there are some updates that are made. It's going to be in the new package. So you'd have to update your package to get those new reports if you are using out-of-the-box reports.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks, Isabel, for taking us through all the features that you did. And I just want to give a thank you to Daniel and Amar earlier for sharing all the wonderful updates. To close, I just wanted to highlight a few upcoming events that we have in the next few weeks. Firstly, we have an expert hour coming up, and these are virtual user groups for those who are LeanData certified. And the next one's going to be on building a comprehensive revenue motion. For those of you who are not LeanData certified, we do have an upcoming live class. So if you'd like to get that certification, please sign up for that next live class on the 24th. We also have an upcoming webinar on June 25th about agentic scheduling, as far as using LeanData alongside your agentic scheduling and building that within your routing as well. And then lastly, this is not within the next few weeks, but registration is open now. So we're having our annual OpsStars conference in San Francisco on October 5th. So if you have not yet signed up for that, please make sure that you do. All right, we will be closing it off now. So I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who joined us today. And we will be following up if there are any questions that we weren't able to get to, or those folks who want to get a recording of this. But thanks again for joining, and have a great rest of your day.